I just wasn't being respected as a partner, and I had paid a lot of money to be one. And I think, I do think that's hard. I understand when people have been on their own for 15 years, like it's hard to then have somebody younger be like, wait a second, but at the same time, then you shouldn't have taken my money.
Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's special guest is Dr. Alexandra Hart, a young board-certified plastic surgeon in private practice based in Atlanta, Georgia, and strategically located on Pill Hill, Atlanta's premier medical destination. Now, within this last year, Dr. Hart has built out a boutique concierge-style practice focused on combining advanced surgical expertise with compassionate care to everything from breast surgery and body contouring to facial rejuvenation. Now, Dr. Hart completed medical school at Avery University, followed by a 6-year residency and a chief residency in the same program. She's a member of several medical associations and also a mother of 2 in her spare time. So Dr. Hart, welcome to Beauty and the Biz. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I love interviewing the new people coming up,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, you're looking younger and younger,
Yeah, good. I'm very good at my job. I'm just kidding.
So why plastic surgery and not some other specialty?
Well, that's a good question. So when I first started medical school at Emory, so in Atlanta, I really wanted to actually be a pediatrician. I love kids. Turns out I just want to have kids. I don't want to be their doctors. But I chose to do the plastic surgery rotation mainly because I could walk to where it was.
Oh.
And so when I walked, I basically found a really good mentor. Actually, it was a male, but he was fantastic. We did a lot of breast reconstruction. And what it was that the reason I had decided to go to medical school was actually because of some Costa Rica medical mission trips. So I went to University of Georgia, and they had a big program where they took dental and medical pre-med students, and we went and spent time in usually Central and South America. And in those clinics, we did things like primary care, we did shot clinics, we did OB, we pulled teeth and stuff like that. And the ones that I actually really liked was the dental clinics because it was very procedural. So that was how, once I kind of got to medical school, I was like, oh, okay, there actually is different types of doctors. And not every doctor, because I had never had surgery, is somebody you just go to an office, they look in your eyes and ears, and then you see them again in a year. There is a way that you can still be a doctor and like have a really nice relationship with your patients, but then also get to do some procedures and get to have that creative and more of a tool set part of medicine, opposed to just always being like conversations and cerebral. And so I'm kind of a doer. So probably I should have anticipated that I really was going to like something that was more procedure. But it wasn't really until I was on the rotation and I really enjoyed all of the patients. I think sometimes in medicine, I hate to use the word normal, but I think sometimes you see people at their worst, and some different specialties tend to attract maybe the worst of certain types of people. I think in plastic surgery, whether you work in a hospital or not, I think all in all, the majority of our patients are like active. They're trying to like be better, even if it is like a reconstruction thing. And so I think that part I really enjoyed. So that's kind of how we got here.
So tell me your journey to private practice, because it wasn't just overnight.
Definitely not. So actually in residency, I did a lot of research. I did a ton of clinical research. I did papers, I read research awards. And actually my original plan was I was going to do a master's in science and clinical research, and I was going to run the Emory clinical research program 50% of the time. And then I was going to be an aesthetic surgeon at their aesthetic center 50% of the time. However, I even applied to the program. That was the plan. However, then when COVID happened, Emory went through probably more than most, some big changes. They had an aesthetic center that had a bunch of surgeons. Those surgeons actually got let go during COVID, and they were on a hiring freeze. So I basically graduated without a job because they couldn't hire me. That was the plan. That's where I'd interviewed, and they were like, "I'm sorry, the dean, we're not allowed to hire anybody." So I had been there a long time, and one of our implant reps was really good friends with who ended up being the surgeon that I joined's office manager. And so I interviewed, it seemed like a good fit. It was not an ideal compensation model. It was all commission based, but I had no job. So here we go. So that's how I ended up in private practice. And I think serendipitously, it has been a wonderful experience. I'm really actually very glad, but I don't know that I would have initially chosen it at first.
But it's a great start into the marketplace,
Yeah.
on someone else's dime, quite frankly. But did you
Well,
learn?
I never got paid a salary. I was always commissioned. So it was not really ever on anybody else's dime, just mine.
But I mean, hopefully, while you were there, could you see how you run the business or how you market the business? Did you learn any of that?
Yeah, so I think the things I did, well, okay, so I joined a partner and we had a pretty good relationship. I ended up, I was an associate and I ended up buying in to be a partner about 4 years in, a
No
50%
kidding.
owner. And throughout those 4 years, I learned a lot. And I think some of that is, when I joined, it was the post-COVID boom. So my senior partner was incredibly busy. Also, they had been around a long time. And I think in general, they had gotten a little bit stagnant. And because once you reach a certain point, you don't really need to market as much. It's all word of mouth. Also, post COVID, nobody needed to market. Everybody was getting plastic surgery. So it wasn't. But then I came in and I'm everybody, I'm like, what in the world? There's all this surgery happening, all this revenue. I'm not doing anything. So I kind of had to figure it out on my own. I won't say that they ever thwarted any of my marketing efforts, but I definitely, it was always a fight to get any money spent and to do anything that was outside the box, which I do think, because of that, we tried all the different things. So first when I first joined, I asked about marketing, but I don't think I really quite understood what I was asking. And eventually I came to learn that, they had a website and they spent a lot of money on those pay-per-click Google ads. But the problem with that website was even by adding me to it, it had so much memory over 10 years. I was never going to perform or come up because that is not the way Google's algorithm works. It's just was always going to put the senior partner always, 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 no matter what you did, even if we both were there. And also, obviously, they were more established. So I always expected them to be a little bit busier, but it was a fight. So eventually we ended up building a new website. And once we did that, I started getting a lot busier.
But was he feeding you patients or were you
No,
on your own and you had to find
no,
your
I
own?
don't think he ever sent me one patient,
Mm,
not one.
okay.
Now, I did some things different. I did different procedures that my senior partner did not do, just labiaplasties. I did drainless tummy tucks. I do deep plane facelifts. I did fat grafting. And those are things that eventually got somewhat adopted as I did them. But I think some of the procedures, but no, he never fed me any patients. I do think, obviously, I would never take away the fact that it was a very well respected practice and a great place to practice. So for a long time until I ended up leaving. And so I do think that definitely helped. I do also think that I learned a lot. I mean, didn't do a lot of social media when I first started. They had a girl that would post, but it kind of sucked. And they kind of knew that. But again, they were so busy that it was what were they trying? He was so booked out. What were they trying to do? But for me, we started basically doing more social media. And actually, what we ended up doing was we actually hired a social media company. And this company was really expensive. I mean, they were $6,000 a month for XYZ thing. They came once a quarter and filmed. And honestly, I don't know that was, I would say, on my list of mistakes. I do think that was a mistake. I think the one thing it did was it showed us okay, some of the stuff we can do ourselves. We paid you $6,000 a month, but my reels are better. And I think some of it was their lack of knowledge of the industry. I think some of it was they didn't quite understand how to get these type of patients, if that makes any sense. I think they very much thought we could just boost posts. We could post little B-reel stuff. And I don't think that the production was $6,000 a month worth. And I think that kind of hurt us because we spent a lot. I mean, we probably spent 9 months doing it. I mean, that's what, 60 something $1,000. And I don't know that it got us a significant amount of followers. We actually ended up finding somebody that was a young 22-year-old girl who was interested in plastic surgery. We kind of knew from around her mom worked with us that ended up she I had to at first coach her to like be like, okay, when you post this about us, this is a little bit of what it is. Like these are the professional ways to say things, but her stuff ended up being much better than somebody we had paid. So we basically just started paying her per hour.
Well, especially if she can come in regularly in video. You can't come in
Yeah,
quarterly and do this. Like this is a game of constant content,
right.
consistency, authenticity. I say to everybody now in today's world, you've got to hire somebody who's focused on you. You can't have some I don't think the agency thing. I think somebody nearby who can come
Yeah,
by, follow you around with the iPad or the cell phone,
right.
knows how to video edit. That's super helpful. And understand social media, because you also have to be everywhere. You have to be on all the channels. So,
Yeah,
I
the other thing that we found was like a lot of times, and we actually had another company before that, but I cannot remember the details of them. But oh, I know we used our website company who was rebuilding our new website. They were like, oh, we do social ads. And what we found was that we ended up spending more time editing their stuff than we could when I could have just done it myself. I'm like, this is like too much work. Like if I have to rewrite everything, then this is not worth it. And like so we really, and then what I found a lot of times with marketing people is they like to give you, like, they like to speak in almost like a different language. So then, like, it's like all smoke and mirrors. I'm like, okay, but yeah, what does that mean? Like, you have to tell me exactly, okay, cool. Like, I have 40 million impressions. I've got this much reach, but like what does that mean to me? How does that translate to like patients calling me and coming
But
in?
they think those are their metrics, like the impressions. It's actually, did anything actually happen from this? Like, did anything concrete happen?
I don't
And
think so.
simply, they could add a bunch of tracking mechanisms, but they're not dying to, because it's more like branding. It's that,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What
yeah.
we actually ended up finding was we did that at the same time as our website was being built. And then we also were paying for pay per click. So, I mean, we must have been spending twelve to $15,000 a month on marketing. And eventually, once our website got built, and we let that perform and we paid for some search engine optimization from the website. We used Rosemont, which is like all plastic surgery. That's not who I'm using at my current practice, but that's who we did use. And they did a nice job. They Once we let the website get better, we ended up not needing the paperclip. And I think that's something I also learned is like we at first used to just like we would just track how many consults. Like we'd be like, okay, this many consults came in, and then this how many booked. And eventually once we were trying to figure out, okay, I think we had maybe a slow quarter because of the economy. And we were like, all right, well, now we need to figure out how to spend our money. And we started basically tracking like, okay, how many consults from this? How many consults from that? And what we found was once our website was performing, all the pay-per-click was mainly people just trying to get directions. So that we were just paying to have people click and get directions, which was like not necessary. The majority of our Google consults were, and you could see it on their call reel access, was like organic search. It was not the pay-per-click ad.
That's why data is so important. You cannot make good decisions without good data. Look
Yeah,
at what you learned. It's always, the doctors always anecdotally give me their data. And I say, can you just run some reports for me? I'm much more comfortable with that,
yeah,
because
yeah,
what you think is going on, the numbers are always different than you think. And you're always so surprised. Like, I had
yeah,
no idea. And that's why in today's world, if we have to fiddle with all this technology, the good news is there is analytics for everything. And there's no reason that you can't know all your numbers nowadays. It's just, do you have the time and the interest in learning
right,
that?
right.
Um, you
Well, and then
know,
we started this thing where we had like a once a week meeting, and we basically would say, okay, this is how many consults everybody had, including all the providers. Like,
good.
this is how much money they brought in. This is how much is for next week. This is where the consults came from. And and then once we were like, we got like very kind of specific with it. Like it wasn't just like Google, it was like Google organic, or is it Google ad? Is it Facebook? Is it a Facebook moms group? Or was it like they saw our practice page on Facebook? Reddit was one. And then Instagram, was it like Instagram boost post, or was it like, you know, again, like referrals, that type thing. And then we obviously had word of mouth or friends and things of that nature.
Hello, it's Catherine. If your practice feels busy but you're not seeing the growth you expected, there's usually a reason, and it's often something small that's quietly costing you revenue. That's why I offer a practice growth review. Now, in this call, I'll take an objective look at your patient flow, conversion process, and retention strategies to identify where opportunities may be slipping through the cracks. You'll walk away with a clear picture of what's working, what's not, and the few changes that could make the biggest difference. If you'd like an unbiased set of expert eyes on your practice, simply visit catherinemaley.com to schedule your review. I'm glad you mentioned Reddit. Nobody should ignore that because that's coming up pretty strong nowadays. They have killer SEO, and they're kind of like the new Yelp. You'll hate them, but you're going to have to deal with them one way or the other. Hopefully, you have a really good reputation with them, but they can cause a lot of trouble.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's just. I've seen it go both
like ways. Google, like when people write good Google ads, or more like.
No, whenever they go to Reddit, hey, what do you know about this doctor? I was thinking about doing a tummy tuck. Anybody know anything? And here comes the whole world talking about you, good or bad.
No, it's a little bit gross, I would say.
Oh, it's dangerous because Reddit is completely uncontrollable. You have no control over this. It's just people talking about you. It's like gossiping out loud,
Yeah.
But it's like Yelp, you could say anything you wanted and you had no recourse. And same thing here with Reddit. They're an open forum.
I mean, I think Google's not unlike that. I mean, Google, you could say, the only time we've ever gotten a Google review removed was like, we had this patient, she was really young and she insisted on coming in, even though we had told her over the phone we weren't going to offer her surgery. And it wasn't even me she saw, but basically we reiterated it when she got here and she essentially like threatened us on Google and Google removed it. But like we've had people leave Google reviews like, that aren't even patients and those stay because they're non-threatening. I'm like, wait a second, this isn't even a patient.
Right. But Reddit is more like a conversation that they're having without you. And that's why it's so dangerous. So somebody can say, what do you know about this doctor and that procedure? And now they're talking amongst themselves. It's just watch Reddit. You'll see. Just go in there.
I believe it. I spend a lot of time on the Facebook moms groups. I get a lot of pictures from those, and it's not dissimilar. Now they're moderated to a certain degree, but not like if people start threatening, then the moderators usually remove. But like if somebody wants to troll you on a Facebook moms group, and I've had it happen, as long as what they're saying is not threatening, they'll let you.
Facebook groups are, again, your best friend or your worst enemy.
Yeah.
But it's just the way it is today. So wait, here's what I'm not clear about. You're in private practice now, but you bought into another practice and you were building equity.
50% owner.
You were going to be 50% owner?
No, I was. I technically still am a disputed shareholder.
Oh my goodness. How difficult is that to untangle from that?
Well, we're still having litigation, so we're not untangled yet. So not super fun. I would say my least favorite thing I've done to date.
Oh, and so early on. Any pearls you've learned so far or just sleepless nights?
Yeah, I mean, I think hindsight's always 20/20. I mean, I do think that I had a really nice experience for my first several years. Do I think it was perfect? Do I think there was some mistakes made on both sides? Yes. But I do think it started out very nice. And then as always, it's always a money dispute that then becomes just ugly, which is kind of where we're at now. It was just really about money. And now it's transitioned into like, you did this, I did that, blah, blah, blah. And it's become like, there are multiple co-defendants, multiple lawsuits, multiple hearings, motions, and it's honestly just become very expensive. And if you ever thought, I think I'm going to leave because a president got elected, just go through a lawsuit. Then you'll be like, I think I'm going to leave because the legal system. You think healthcare is broken? No. There is no more broken system.
That is a shame. Gosh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, that's okay.
Well, now, although you know what I've noticed, usually the sweet spot is 2 years. Usually you've been with someone for 2 years, you have your legs under you, you know what you're doing, and you start thinking to yourself, we don't match in values or in vision, and you realize it then, and usually at around 2 years is when things start getting wobbly. I really kind of figured we would be
there until my senior partner retired. Like I really did not have plans to leave. But I tried for a very long time to resolve some things, and eventually some things happened with money that I just had to finally say, like, enough is enough. Like I've tried to talk, I've tried to ask, like, I just wasn't being respected as a partner, and I had paid a lot of money to be one. And I think, I do think that's hard. I understand when people have been on their own for 15 years, like it's hard to then have somebody younger be like, wait a second, but at the same time, then you shouldn't have taken my money.
When money's involved, it changes everything because you have some decision power there.
Yes. And
Oh,
I don't think that was, so that's kind of what became the downfall, is like it was somebody that was used to doing things their way. And I actually, like I said, I did not want to leave. And I'm sure over the course of this, it'll be, the story on the other side will be that I was trying to leave and do this, but that is not the truth. Like I really didn't want to leave. I enjoyed my job. I really liked my coworkers. I really liked my partner. I really liked everybody. But, at some point when somebody is just treating you so poorly, I mean, it's like in any relationship, or it's like any divorce, right? It's like you get to a point where it's like, how much do you want to change your life because you can't be treated this way anymore? And I think everybody has a limit. And at some point, my limit was reached. And, there had to be some changes that weren't made. And that was kind of it. So it's like, so it is sad because that really was not what I saw in my future. But I will say I learned a lot. Like I definitely, as buying into a partner, like even before buying into a partnership, like I did not know about all QuickBooks. I didn't know about balance sheets, P&Ls, like payroll reports, 401ks and how that's divvied up, ERISA laws, all kinds of stuff that you learn when you start like having to do the accounting yourself, and also like in being interested in your own business's accounting. And so I wouldn't, take away the experience. I definitely think I could write a book probably in 2027, but it isn't necessarily what I saw my path as being per se.
well, did you stay in the area or did you have a non-compete?
Yeah, I have a non-compete. So I'm outside my non-compete. Now it's a little bit confusing because Atlanta's a big city. So we had a couple offices when I first started, two different offices, and then we moved to one single office. And so I am now kind of actually back where my original office is, but it's outside my non-compete. It's in Sandy Springs, which is really like the heart of Atlanta. And it's actually been interesting because I had a lot of patients that, when we moved all the way up north, that I lost, because I actually do a lot of injectables, which we can talk about. And then when I came back more south, they were like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited you're back. Which they all found me on social media. I mean, like if it wasn't for social media, I think I would feel a lot more like, oh my God. But I will say, like in the last 6 months, I've been very honored about how many patients have followed me, how people have found me. And that is really like been a social media thing. I mean, you can't hide with Instagram.
Nice. Well, thank God for Instagram though. So
Thank God.
you're in your own place. You subleased a place, and I saw it on Instagram. It's darling. You have a nice office there. And the minute I saw that, it says, and this is just a sublease because we're building another office. I thought, what are you doing? So what's the next?
I mean, we had like a heated summer end of last summer in my old office. And basically about mid-September, things fell apart and I was leaving, and I had to leave by September 30th. So I set up a practice in 10 days. I got a business license, an LLC. I got a phone line. I had to get medical malpractice, all those things. I had to get a credit card, bank account, and all of that. And I did in like 10 days. And then I had a good friend actually that let me use her office space for about 2 months. And serendipitously, we found in the process a building that it's actually called the Gucci building. It's been around in Atlanta forever. Probably almost every physician maybe has been through this building, but they redid it. It's very nice on the inside. And so they had an office. I mean, quite honestly, the layout is like, they should have had a physician look at this layout because like no one's ever going to rent it long term. And so I was able to capitalize on that. So I was like, would you be willing to let me sublease this while I build something upstairs? And they were, I think, because it had been sitting there. It's beautiful spec space. They did a nice job on like the finishes, but the layout is just like it has all this open admin space, and like, there needs to be a front of the house, back of the house. Like, your staff working on stuff isn't what you want your, like, I run a boutique aesthetic, like high-end practice. Like, I don't want patients to feel like we have all their information out. And also I don't want them like seeing the nurse, like eating her lunch, and that's the way this office is set up. So that's why I think they let us do it, because it had been sitting there forever. So I think they were like, well, we'd rather you pay us rent while you build something else in our building than like us not get any rent for that space that's never going to get rented.
Nice. Are you going to do the OR route, or are you going to?
Yeah, I do think I'd like to have an OR. I don't want to have a big OR. Like, I don't want multiple. Well, I would like to have two. But I don't know that I want like 3, 4, 5, 6. And it would be more just for my office. I wouldn't be like, I'm not trying to make money. It's more of a convenience. Cause like that is probably then the biggest change is, since I left my old practice, they had an OR. That's annoying. It's hard the operating thing is trying to, go to different hospitals and like drag everything. I have, thank God for Hulken bags. Are you familiar with those? Those rolly bags. Well, now that I said it, it'll be all over your algorithm. It's like a rolling big shopping cart. It's like what I carry my implants around in. But yeah, I would like to have an OR.
Did your commute get better?
It's about the same. It's maybe a little bit further because it's like San Francisco. Like, if you go closer into the city, there's more traffic. So mileage wise, it's about the same from my house, but time wise, it can be a little longer just because of the traffic. But I actually don't mind it because the area is much more heavily populated. So I think that helps.
Yeah. So when you went out on your own, could you bring your photos and your reviews and your database with you, or did you have to start?
No. I couldn't. And I had to get all that back, which that was a bummer. So that's probably my one piece of advice is, make sure you own your photos. And that was a mistake on my part. I had actually been told that by somebody who was in a similar situation in Atlanta. But as I said, I thought that I was going to be a partner. We had been there 4 years. We got along. Like, I thought surely there would be nothing that would like prevent that, if that makes any sense. So I didn't really fight that in our partnership agreement. And in hindsight, I definitely should have. That was a mistake. That was probably, if I had to pick some of my regrets, that's probably one of them.
But now you have to start fresh. So what do you just go with injectables and hope they have surgery? Do you jump into surgery? Do you start paying for?
Yeah, I think actually when we started, you had asked me how I ended up deciding that to not do recon and things like that. And I think part of it is that, I think you have to pick your poison. So either you do a bunch of reconstruction and that's your like safe net, or you can build an injectable practice. And I make more, if we're just talking about money, I would make more money doing injectables than I do.
Nice.
But I do probably $1 million of injectables a year. So, the margins aren't as good, but they do. I don't know that they turn into surgery as patients as much as people say, but on average, your ROI on a 30-year-old getting Botox is higher than doing a breast aug.
Totally. I think that's a really good point. You can make more doing injectables than doing recon in today's crazy insurance.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Now, there obviously is a higher cost of overhead, but like I said, I compare it mainly to the breast aug population because they tend to be younger. Well, not all, but on average, they're your 30s to 50-year-old patients. They tend to be cost conscious because you can get Botox anywhere. But augs, even in big markets like here, New York, Chicago, Miami, that's a commodity. Like you can only charge so much for an aug. There are some outliers, but on average, you can only charge so much for a breast aug. And like a lot of that cost is OR, anesthesia, implants, bras, things like that. And so Botox and toxin and all that's very similar. But the one thing that I've always noticed is like, even when we've had like back at my old practice, when we had like if I had a slow quarter surgery, my injectable practice stayed pretty consistent, at least, it would go kind of like this, whereas like sometimes surgery's down, sometimes it's up, injectables tend to be outside of 2008 types crashes, they tend to be pretty consistent, at least for surgeons, maybe not med spas, but I think high-end boutique practices, they tend to be People are still going to come get their Botox and get their lips done.
A lot of them are still trying to delay surgery, and they'll sink a bunch of money into non-surgical until they can't, you know? So
Yeah,
no, you have a huge audience for that.
100%. And money wise, it's definitely better than recon without a doubt.
I guarantee my face fund has grown dramatically as the years have gone by. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, people will come in and they'll get they do the Botox before they get their hair done.
Yep.
They'll do their hair at home in a box and they'll come get Botox.
Yeah. I don't know why people think it's a option, you know, it's a necessity in my. Anyway, so now you're in private practice. You have some legal issues, but you don't seem to be bothered by them, or it's going okay. Good for you. Great attitude. But now you have to hire staff. And you probably didn't have to manage staff at the other place perhaps, but now you do. So any tips or tricks on hiring, firing, motivating staff? Because it'll be the toughest part.
Well, I mean, I did I mean, we had a smallish practice, so I definitely managed. I'm also remarkably I like to be involved, I would say. I mean, maybe that's because I'm a surgeon and it's control thing. I always like to be involved and know the staff. I'm sure I had staff that, didn't care for me, and I'm sure I will again. And I think that's part of it. I do think the probably most important person in an office besides the surgeon is going to be whoever's running and dealing with the staff on a day-to-day, who their point person is, if that makes any sense. Because it can't be me. I can't be answering every single question, every single request, so I think that person is important. So I feel like that's usually the first person that you want to partner with. And so I'm using a consultant, and they work for me part-time, and then they have some other clients part-time. And for now, they're functioning as basically my patient care coordinator, because they're very experienced and they do some business stuff. But for the most part, I'm actually doing the majority of my accounting, my bill paying, my QB, QuickBooks and that type of stuff, because that's what I'm doing. Now, as far as front desk and nurse, I have a part-time nurse and I have a front desk.
Okay. And you think you'll keep it that way, or are you going to try to grow?
No, we're actually looking for, I kind of would like to have, the one thing I just wasn't, I wanted to see kind of how it was going to go in terms of revenue, patients, because I had to build a new website. I had to go get headshot, all that's very expensive. And then websites, I'm still waiting on my new website, big website to be built. And so I kind of wanted to see how busy I was before I got some more full-time staff. And so, but I am kind of looking for a right-hand person, almost like an extension. Full-time, can help me do pre-ops, can help me do post-ops, and then learn how to do some basic post-ops, that type thing. And I don't know if I'm looking either for an MA or a nurse, but I would like to definitely have that. The other thing that is, I don't know what they have in California, but in Georgia, I was really worried about insurance because I'm my own my family's, I was the benefits. But in Georgia, you can join the Georgia Farm Bureau and you can get insurance through them. So that's a very good tip for people. And I think most places have that. Not every state, but a lot do.
I don't know. California and insurance don't get along. I
Really?
don't think it's good. Yeah. I don't know. So what would you say overall would be the biggest mistake? Other than probably the non-compete, maybe, or the photos?
No, yes, but I don't think you're ever going to get anybody to agree to a contract without a non-compete.
Yeah.
So I think you need to just have one that's reasonable. Mine was 10 miles. Not ideal, but I didn't have to move my house. So I think a reasonable non-compete. I wouldn't spend $20,000. I think my biggest mistake was I should have made my patient photos, even if it was devoid of patient information, my property, because in reality, what are they going to do with them? Right? It's
what they're going to do with them is keep them away from you, is what they're going to do with them.
Exactly. And I signed, but I think that was a mistake. I also think that, I don't know. It's hard for me. I try not to live in regrets, because it's I would say, oh, I shouldn't have trusted this. I shouldn't have trusted that. But at the time, I had been there 4 years. We had a great relationship. I had no reason to believe that what is happening now would be happening to me. And so, or that somebody would treat me the way that they're treating me. And so it's hard for me to say if I would do anything differently. I do think that you should always have a lawyer if you're going to sign a contract, and it should be a real lawyer, not your like aunt, your uncle, your cousin. And I had a lawyer, and my lawyer, what ended up happening was not in the contract. Let's put it that way. So it wasn't, outside of the patient photos, I don't know that there's anything that I could have done to prevent it, because it was a little bit of like a bait and switch situation. So, and I don't know that there was anything I could have done to prevent that, outside of just saying, I'm not going to sign this contract and go start over. But I think maybe my biggest mistake is not feeling like after 4 years, I could have done it on my own. Like, I think probably if I could have done it again, maybe I should have just done it on my own after 4 years and been like, no, instead of giving you this money, this has been great, I'm going to go do my own thing. But I don't think I would have done that, because I really enjoyed my job and I really liked my partner. So
I have heard the lawyers say, set this up in writing. What happens if things implode? Like, get it in writing. If all goes to hell, how are we going to separate this?
Yeah, see, ours did not have a mandatory mediation arbitration clause, and I do wish it did. Now, the problem with that is you can't. It's America, so you can have that clause, but just because you put it doesn't mean that people would mediate. And I think that on the other side of my situation, I think even if we had that, we would have gone to mediation and it would have busted out anyways. So it's like, who's to say that matters? Now, I will say, as my own thing, I consider myself very reasonable. I don't hold a lot of emotion for things. Like, I try to move on, and like, I'm like, okay, if I have an associate, or when I have an associate, I will put in a mandatory mediation arbitration clause. But that's because I consider myself very reasonable. So like, no matter what happens, I'm not going to do what I'm doing again. This is outrageous. It's costing so much money, so much time, so much energy, and nobody's going to win. It's just going to be the lawyers that win. And so for me, if I ever had somebody that come in and they didn't want to be there, and I felt like they owed me money or I owed them or whatever, I would have a mandatory mediation. So I think it's something worth putting in there, because most people are going to be reasonable, but not always. So, I mean, you could at least try.
No, I've worked with practices. They were together 30 years and they were best of friends, and it just went. And it was the worst, like, ending to their, practice in their mental health. It was just awful. So
Really?
Yeah. Sorry to say that. Yeah. Sorry. All right. Back to Atlanta. Lots of competition in Atlanta. How are you differentiating yourself? And who are you?
Oh, it's hard.
Yeah, you've got a busy place there, and I think everyone's on Peachtree. Is there only one street there, period, and called Peachtree?
Well, there's a bunch of Peachtree. So
Okay.
in my office on Peachtree Dunwoody, there's Peachtree Road, there's Peachtree Park.
I never seen the word Peachtree so much in my life.
Yes, I know. Now, I will say, where I am, there is a bunch of plastic surgeons now, but we all do a little bit of everything, or of different things, I would say. Like, there's actually a lot of like young females, but there is. Yeah. And I have a lot of like friends that are probably about 6 years out, and we're all very collegial and do very similar things, at least right now. I think some of it is, I think that we provide a really like concierge experience. I think my staff is really friendly. I spend a lot of time with my patients, more than most. I'm very, very honest, and I'm very, very thorough. So all my consults are very, very informed. I also, I try to like connect to my patients on like a personal level. So I know all their kids' names and how old they are and what they do for a living and things like that. That way, in some respects, that helps me, because I feel like if you know the patient more, then hopefully you can deliver better. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I mean, all of us have patients that we just don't jive with, or they're mad about this, they're mad about that. The other thing is, and when I was in residency and fellowship, like Dr. Nahai and Dr. Loskin, here, two of my big mentors, we get all these lectures. When you have somebody that's not doing well, they're having a complication, see them frequently, even though it sucks. And we will see you frequently, even though it sucks. We'll see you every day if you want. I mean, I went on vacation about a month ago, and I had a couple patients that they weren't really having any true complications, but they needed a little like TLC. And we FaceTime while I was in Big Sky, because it's like, sometimes they just want to see your face. I think that is the most painful and draining part of
Yeah.
being a plastic surgeon. But I think that is why, I mean, it's taken me a minute, but I think that's part of why I get a lot of patient referrals. And while even when I have patients that maybe aren't happy about XYZ thing, I very much feel like we still have a good relationship and I'll fix it. I also think
You don't want the alternative, which is you're on Reddit now, them telling their story about how unhappy they are. So
right.
I'm so glad you're handling that. I handle
No,
it well.
I
It's
do my
still just
best,
a
but
little
I mean, it's
problem.
hard. I definitely think it's hard. I think as surgeons, especially the majority of us are like OCD and perfectionists. So it's hard whenever you have patients where they don't look even how you want them to look, or they're having something that just happens. I mean, sometimes things just happen. It's like you can't predict it. It just does. And I think it's hard sometimes when people are struggling. Also, sometimes women aren't even too emotional for me. I mean, I'm not an emotional female, like I'm a surgeon. So sometimes like that is hard. And I think that I do think that is the part where, all those like classes we take on like I hate to say not how not to get sued, but like how to patient happiness and patient experience. I mean, I'm sure you're a consultant, it's like as painful as it is, you just have to sit there and listen and just say less, listen more, and see them the next day if they want.
It's less grief now or a whole lot more grief later.
And I agreed. It's like if you could just be quiet and just listen. That's the other thing is like the other thing is I try to never live in absolutes. So like when people are like, they come in week 1 and they're like, oh, what about this? 99% of the time it's just swelling. It's this, it'll settle. But like all they want to hear is, it's probably just swelling, but if it's not, I'll fix it. That's all they want to know is if it's not, will you fix it? Whereas if you just say, oh, it's swelling, it's swelling, it's swelling, it's swelling. And then a year later, they've heard it 50 times. Sometimes it's not you they're complaining to in a year. They're going to be complaining to someone else. And
For
they
sure.
didn't even get a chance to fix it. And it could have been something so, so, so minor.
Yeah. You also, I would think you would go with like your innovative techniques because you are younger. One of the issues is you're very young looking and you're doing deep plane facelifts. And as an older woman, I'd be like, you really? Because you kind of look like a cheerleader, Like, do you have that issue where people don't
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
meet you?
For sure. I mean, I think some of it is yeah, I mean, that was how I was trained. And I think that's become like a tagline. I don't necessarily think it's not some novel thing per se anymore. But the way I was trained to do it was that way. And I also have a mentor that when I got out, the first mini that I did, he came and helped me. And then I've spent a lot of time and money educating myself. Like even just this year alone, I've been to a course. I've been up and visited people. I've visited people in town. I'm doing another course in October. So it's like, I get it and I respect that. I totally understand that. I don't like fault people. And it's it's a hard thing, but like I think pretty much most people, some of that deep plane is marketing, right? Like that's how most people do them. It's just like a matter of like using the term. Similar, I do also a lot of the internal mesh bra.
Uh-huh.
And similarly, I was trained to do it. We did a ton of recon, all pre-pec, which like above the muscle and all with mesh. It's almost the exact same surgery. The only difference is we do it in aesthetics now because the mesh prices have come down. And
Hmm.
so now we can do it in aesthetics. It's not necessarily that it's like some novel technique per se.
It's just you have to explain it to the patient because they're like, "What's up with this mesh thing? I don't need this."
100%.
Yeah, it's a bit of
Yeah,
that.
and similarly, like I said, I try not to live in absolutes. Like, I very much like if patients come in and they don't want the mesh, I tell them what the benefits are, what the cons are, and then they can choose. In some instances, I will say like I really highly, highly recommend this. And
Mhm.
those are the patients that if they have an issue, then I'm less likely to want to fix it for free because I warned you of this. Similarly to patients that come in for breast and they don't want to lift. I'm like, okay, well, we can do this. And I have over time, I don't have them anymore, but at one point I had curated like, okay, this is a patient that I did an aug on. I said they needed a lift. This is a
Yeah.
patient that borderline lift, but if she had gotten a lift, this is what she looked like, but this is now what she looks like. You know what I'm saying? So I think those things are helpful to patients because it's hard to like explain. But like I said, I really try to let the patients choose as long as it's safe.
That's actually one of my biggest tips. Do not, when a patient's resisting, don't get in the middle of that, because then you'll get defensive and then they'll get more resistant. Show them the patient, let the patients do it with their photos. This is what it could look like. This is what it ended up looking like because they went with this direction. I love using photos for objections because it pulls you out of it. The patient's looking right at these photos going, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think patients sometimes, like, everybody's different. Like sometimes like people are like, well, I can live with like my nipple being low or my breast being off my implant, but I would just die if I had a scar, So it's like, okay, well, I don't really feel that way, but
Yeah.
it's not unsafe. It's just not ideal. Like we're probably not going to put you on the website, but but if you're happy and it's safe, okay.
Well, they had a choice. You can have
Yeah.
this, you can have
Yeah.
this. Pick one,
Right.
By
Right.
the way, I would think you would do really good with the mommy makeover group. You're a mom, you've had
Yeah.
kids.
I mean, I do a lot of mommy makeovers. I also do drainless tummy tucks with a lot of liposuction. And I
Yeah.
think that's actually been a big learning thing for me. We did a lot of tummy tucks and a lot of drainless tummy tucks in training, but we didn't do a lot of liposuction for whatever reason. They got a little, but what I noticed was actually the liposuction is almost just as important as like pulling out the skin. And so that's actually been a transition for me. I used to let people like pick and choose, and now I pretty much package it. Like, just because what was happening is they would say, oh, well, if I take this off, it's, X dollars less expensive. And then what would happen is I'd be lipoing it later for free.
Yeah.
So I finally have just decided, outside of some very, very specific instances, like it's a tummy tuck package, it's a mommy makeover package, it's Dr. Hart's breast lift internal mesh bra, safe lipo framing package. And I don't really let people pick and choose. I let them choose mesh or no mesh within reason, but like I don't always let them choose lipo, no lipo, those type things. I'm like, we're just doing it. That's what it is. That's part of it.
So overall, would you have any tips for somebody else coming out now or trying to leave the hospital? Any tips on how to jump into private practice?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like if you're trying to leave the hospital, like and there are surgeons in towns that have said to my face, like, you need to be in the OR. Why are you injecting? I'm like, well,
Yeah.
your choice is either go to breast recon when breast surgeon A says to, or I can run my clinic 8 to 5 and I can do Botox. Like, why are we looking down on one over the other? Now, I get it from like an ethical standpoint, breast cancer. I get that. But if we're talking about like just revenue and how I'm spending my time. So I think that is probably one of the things when I got out. Like I have a lot of friends that are my year out, similar. A lot of them have small practices, and I'm the only one that does a significant amount of injectables. Now, I never had the luxury of like not making enough money to pay my bills. My husband started his own business. Like he's not a doctor. He doesn't make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Well, he did, but not, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I never had that luxury. So I just needed to do, and I also was never paid a salary when I got out. So I was always commissioned. So I needed to do what I needed to do. And I think because of that, like you have to respect that, yeah, I'm a surgeon, I want to operate. But again, it's not necessarily what the patients want. They don't all want deep plane facelifts. They don't all want blephs. They don't all want the downtime. And so I think one thing I do is because I do Botox, I do toxin, I do lasers. I don't do them anymore, but I learned how to do like broadband light and IPL. So I understand the technology and what it can do. Similarly, microneedling. I know how to do microneedling. So I know what they all can do. So I think because of that, I can tell the patient, okay, well, this is going to fix this, but you need this, 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 and this if you really want the rest of it fixed. And I think that is part of what patients want, because when I used to have a practice where we had all the things, because we had a spa, we had lasers, we had microneedling, and I'm going to have that hopefully by the end of the year here too. Then it feeds into itself too. And then your spa makes more money. And then, so it's like, you can't be above doing, even now, like I'll do microneedling if you want. I'll do a peel, even though technically an esthetician can do it. I'll do it. If you want it, let's do it. And I think some of that, you just kind of have to be willing to do whatever. It's the same thing as recon. You got to be willing to do whatever. It's the same thing in aesthetics. It's just different.
And I've had several surgeons come on and have a terrible relationship with the med spa operator. And
really?
You know what? I was happier doing the darn injectables myself. You can't win. You have to know who you are. Do you want to manage people? Do you want a complex practice? Do you want an easygoing practice and you're home for dinner? You just have to figure out who you are and be that,
Yeah.
be comfortable with what you're doing. I think you're doing a great job. We're going to get ready to wrap it up now. Tell us, do you yet have a crazy patient or staff story you care to share?
Oh my gosh. Let me think. I'm trying to think. Oh, I do actually. Okay. So when Vera started, I was pregnant and I had I had a baby shower. They threw me a baby shower and we had a staff member that basically I got it must have been like $500 worth of stuff. Okay. From this very fancy baby store. And so I liked a lot of it, but some of the stuff just wasn't my style. So I ended up going to the baby store to take it back. And I'm there, I'm like, hey, can I just get store credit? I want to exchange this. And they're like, yeah, sure. And then she goes and she gets her manager and then they go to the back. And then it's like this 30-minute thing. And I'm just like standing there and like, whatever. And so then they come back to me and they're like, I don't know how to tell you this, but this stuff is stolen. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? They're like, yeah, this is stolen. And if you could have seen the staff member that gave me this, but I was new. I mean, this was like 6 months into my.
This is hysterical.
So fast forward like another 18 months later, this said staff member, people are like, no, she ends up getting fired for A, stealing and B, being rude to staff. And I actually really love this lady. So it was really a shame. And so then at that point, and I wasn't a partner at that point, I was still like new. And so I never had told anybody in the office that story because I was like, I'm not going to be the one that like tells people that this lady stole all this presents. So then afterwards, I'm like, well, I just kind of assumed it was a mistake, but turns out this like very seasoned human being had gone in and stole this $500 of the baby stuff and then gave it to me as a present.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
I see why you didn't turn her in, but frankly, if she can steal baby clothes, what's she doing in your practice? She's stealing all
that's my point. But at the time I was so new. So I was like, I kind of thought, well, maybe because in this baby store, it was like a bunch of like contemporaries of this staff member. So I was like, well, maybe they have like a little ring where like the clerk actually goes and then they trade skincare for like the baby clothes, but she didn't actually go in there and steal it. But then later we found out this was like a repetitive thing. And I was like, oh, no, she went and stole the baby clothes.
Okay. That's
then they were really nice. They were like, well, we'll give you the wholesale version as clearly you had no idea. But I've been too embarrassed. I will never step foot in there. I'm like, I will never go back in there.
Oh, that's too bad. Oh, that's so funny. Last question. Tell us something interesting we don't know about you yet.
I love F1 racing. I'm a huge F1.
I did not see that coming. Okay.
Yeah. My husband has grown up, always been a fan. And then as I got older, I mean, I don't know if you watch it, but this will be my plug. It's like it'd be like if there was a sport where it's just 20 quarterbacks. It's like there's only 20 players, there's only 20 cars, and it's like the most amount of money. And it's fascinating. And all of the players are like, there's so much drama. It's like Real Housewives meets like really attractive men and lots of money.
All right, that sounds good. I can check.
It's very interesting.
That's funny. So if anyone wanted to get a hold of you, I know your website, this is your website. It's called Dr. Alexandra Hart, HART.com. And then
we're going to have a much better, bigger one here soon. But that's the one we made in about a day.
It looks good
though.
It
looks nice, but it's not optimized. It's got to get, we have to optimize, as you know.
Yeah, got to optimize. And then also your Instagram is alexandra.hartmd. So you should check that out. She's got a nice Instagram. It has been a pleasure getting to know you. I'm so sorry for what has happened, but it will turn you into the most incredibly professional, business and marketing, because you're getting your hard knocks in early, and then it'll get a lot better as you go along.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. Thank you so much. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and everyone, that's going to wrap it up for us now. If you would so kindly subscribe and review Beauty in the Biz, that'd be terrific. And then if you've got any feedback or questions for me, leave them on my website at catherinemaley.com, or you can certainly DM me on Instagram at catherinemaley.mba. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon. Top plastic surgery practices convert more than 80% of their consultations into surgery. Now, the difference usually isn't better patients, it's a better and more strategic consultation structure. Here's the real issue. You're already paying to generate those consults through marketing, staff, and overhead. But if your coordinator is not professionally trained to guide patients through the decision process, many of those qualified patients walk out the door never to be heard from again. That's lost revenue you've already invested to attract. So if you want your practice performing at the level of the top tier, invest in the people responsible for converting consultations. Learn more at convertingacademy.com.